Welcome to In the Car Recall episode Pitches with Tyler. That's right, this is where I pitch you an idea of a property that already exists if I was given the keys to the kingdom and what I would do with it while I'm driving. Because I do a lot of driving for work, and so it just helps keep the mind flowing. I'm Tyler. You might know me as the host of the Krypton Report podcast, all things DC Comics podcast, mainly focused on Superman. But I do like to talk about other things. And recently, I talked with my good pal, best pal, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Brian Peters. I'm Gravely Amusing, and we discussed the original slasher in fiction, Norman Bates. And we did a deep dive into Psycho and Bates Motel. And I got thinking, because for years I never watched Psycho 2, because it just didn't seem as it felt cheap. But no, it was good. It was totally worth watching. Um, I still like. There's something about the hauntedness and the black and white of the original that just works perfectly. And I feel like there was this era where everything was just overlit. Even the original Scream is ironically really bright for a horror film. But I got thinking, what would I do? It's tough because I feel like Bates Motel just really like amplified it. But then I got thinking about culture and looking at concepts that were used in Robert Bloch's novel that weren't really used for the continuation of the Psycho mythos. So this is my pitch. First of all, um, you got to look at the book. And that's where we pull this up. Because in the book, Norman is overweight, middle-aged, balding dude. Right there off the bat screams serial killer. Okay. And as a man who's approaching the middle age paradigm, not really paradigm, middle age, bracket, there we go. It's early, people. I take offense to how it's always middle aged white dudes as serial killers. Um, but my pitch is we start off, it would just be called Norman. And you'd play on the NOR, the NOR, and then the MAN with color and stuff in the text, and maybe even two different fonts for the name. And we'll get to that. But you start with this man being released from a mental institution. He is middle aged, white, and medium build. And through some flashbacks, we will learn that he was overweight, morbidly obese, and that while in the hospital for the past about 10 years. Now the age, I'm going to put him in the psych ward for about 10 years. So that puts him in his 30s when he goes in and he gets out in his 40s. So 10 to 15 years, all right? Because I don't want him too old, but I don't want him too young, because I want to stay as true to the book in certain aspects as possible. Um, and the thing was, you would have flashbacks that would tell certain events from Psycho. And then in the flashbacks, we would see more of the disgusting, grotesque, overweight Norman. But we would also see him battle in his self the different personalities. Now, we are used to, if you just watch Psycho the film, Norman and Mother, who is Norma. This is his mother's name. Now, in the book, there's also Normal, which is a third personality, which was basically a normal person. Norman was more this boy, repressed. Normal was the adult man, and then Norma was the personality of Mother that would take over. And we would see things in flashbacks as he tries to reintegrate society into society, um, and he comes out because he's lost weight. He's about medium build. Um, he's has a sense of charm to him as a person. But what happens is when he gets back, he learns that his story was sensationalized while in the institution. He learned that it's been a film series and that people are like wearing merch about this film and stuff that's based on him, and that how this based on a true story kind of thing, became a pop culture internet phenomenon. So he starts traveling to, uh, Hollywood and tries to find, like, hey, this is my life story. Like, what happened? How did you guys get around? Like, why am I not getting paid? Like, you're ruining you're putting an even more grotesque version of who I am. You're using my real name. Um, and how that's affecting him being able to get back into society. Like, we would see him go to a store and he's there. He goes to the sign, like, "Oh, I'm Norman Bates," and like, "Oh man, are you named after the psycho guy? That's crazy." And then it's like, "No, I am." And what that does to a person when they're trying to be the best they can be. And then he goes, into what, how society, takes these true stories and makes them into something huge, and it can destroy people's lives and the people that are connected to him. Because we also see how it's affected people in the town, as their town has become um, almost like a tourist destination. Of course, uh, the Bates Motel has been sold, and it's now more like a tourist destination, and that's what Norman comes home to. Now, Robert Bloch's book had this whole thing with Norman escaping and killing nuns, and but the idea is, in comics, there's always the thing with the Joker about the whole one bad day, right? And this is kind of the story about how we can push someone who already was broken, who's rebuilt themselves, but just can't handle it because the real world is so hard to those who have mental impairments, and that the real world can crush you because everyone's chasing the dollar. And it's really about Norman's breaking uh, his psychoses, and that when you're that fractured and that traumatized, and you're put in a situation that is that you can't survive. You have you have to have the horror element. But like if Norman had stayed in the mental institute or had tried to live recluse, maybe he would have done well. But being let out and then trying to pick up his life somewhere and seeing what the world had done to his life causes him to snap back. And that's really where the personalities start to come to effect. Um, I like psychological thrillers. I always have. I'm not going to go into, I haven't quite figured out how I would do the killings yet. But I like the story of someone, who's trying to move forward, and from what they've done in the psychological trauma that they've experienced. Um, and it is kind of a remix, a little bit of ideas. We're cherry picking from the book. We're taking back from the book. We're making a commentary on the social world right now with the way we look at real events and people's lives and how people love true murder podcasts, true murder, stories, and how there used to be this time period that like 20 years or so, and now it's like it gets closer and closer to how we want to tell these real life events. Um, and we're going to use the book and themes from the different films and ideas because of what trauma and at least to. But I also want to comment on the mental health field about how we have hospitals, we have people who are dedicated, but we're also overrun that we have a lot of people who are unqualified to really be digging deep into trauma counseling and therapy, and some people who need more extensive therapy and help can't get the help that they need, and we're just kind of pushing them through the system, hoping that they'll figure it out or pushing it off our responsibility. And how that also plays into just lackadaisical um, treatment and generic treatment and underfunding can really, put a detriment to society. But I think I haven't figured out that Norman, he is our protagonist, but he is more of a victim of his own psychoses. And I think I haven't figured out where I almost want to pull like an American Psycho, where there's things that are happening, but you're not really sure if they're happening or if they're in Norman's head, what all is. And I kind of like the idea of this battle we see almost with the personalities inside of him. Um, of are people really being murdered or not? Um, Almost like he's lost so much because his personalities are at war that that neither one of them can really take over and make an action. That so much of it is just him and his mind that we as the audience aren't sure what's happened and what's going on with these murders. Um, but it's an idea. Let me know what your thoughts.